Pure Light Family Chiropractic here in Bend, Oregon. And I am so excited to be doing this webinar tonight on informed choice through pregnancy, birth, and parenting. And for those watching, if you were planning on watching on Monday night, I just need to do another apology for that. For those who saw my little video, I went to the eye doctor on Monday afternoon and just had my eyes checked, all as well, but my eyes were dilated and there was no way I could look at a screen for 30 minutes, even hours later. So here we are, just a couple days later. I hope you're able to get on and watch this either live or later. I would love for this to be a discussion. So whether you're on here live with me, let me make sure the chat is pulled up. There it is. If anybody wants to comment or chat or ask questions, I'd love for this to be a discussion. If this is a discussion that you want to continue after this webinar, you're always welcome to shoot me a message. Because really one of the big themes of this webinar, as is all of our webinars, is having a tribe, having a community, having support through your journey, whether you're preconceptive right now thinking, of getting pregnant, whether you're pregnant, about to give birth, or you're a new mom or dad, or you're well into your parenting journey. There's always more to learn, and having support and community is huge. And we strive to be that for you, whether you're a part of our practice or not. We're always here for you. So I'm going to jump in tonight, and like I said, is on informed choice. This is something I'm really passionate about, and it's something that is crucial and really important. And it's really vital as a parent to have informed choice on everything. But what this takes to be informed as a parent takes being an advocate for your child. So advocacy is extremely vital in parenting, but it's less anticipated because you're going to have choices to make when you're pregnant or about to give birth, or when you're a mom or dad, but you don't expect how big these choices are and who your child becomes. It's all of these choices are shaping their future. And we're not perfect, right? We're going to make mistakes, and we're learning every single day as parents. But again, the choices we make now shape who they are. And what I think of as a mom, so when you're expecting, you're falling in love with your baby, but you don't know them yet, right? You just know that you'll do whatever it takes for them. So you become informed through pregnancy and birth, and we're going to go into detail there. But post-birth, when you meet your baby, to me, the most empowering, invigorating feeling is when you look in their eyes for the first time. And you get to know them through those first days, weeks, months, as you learn to love them even more. And to me, what stands out is that light in their eyes. These children, what makes children so precious and so amazing is that light in their eyes, right? They're this pure light, just for our office, pure light. They have this pure light within their eyes. They're so innocent and so full of potential, this God-given potential that they have. And so for me, I think about it as a mom, and I really advocate for her because I want to see that light in her eyes grow even brighter. I want to see her spirit get even stronger. I don't want that light to be dimmed. And what's so unfortunate is we live in a world that's extremely stressful, extremely toxic, and doesn't necessarily help children shine and be who they're meant to be. And so for me, it's so sad when you see that light start to dim or go out in these children's eyes, and they just kind of become, going with the culture and the vibe instead of being who they're really meant to be. So that's really something I'm really passionate about for my own child and future children, but also all of your children. And if you bring your kiddos into CS, that is always our biggest objective. Let's tune up their nervous system to help them be the brightest version of themselves as possible, clear away those stressors and toxins with the adjustments. But so we're not talking about that tonight, though. What we're talking about tonight is how do we advocate for children? How do we become fully informed on all of these choices that are going to come up? So I'm going to go into some basic components of decision making that comes with informed choice. And then I'm going to break down a little bit about pregnancy, birth, informed choice stuff to talk about. And then healthcare choices in general for your family, and then also just in general parenting, making decisions for your child in terms of school, and what that looks like for what's best for them versus what's the norm. And so kind of going back a little bit to informed choice and being all about how do you live your life? How do you make choices? So you can break it down into two ways. Do you live a reactionary life, Or do you make active decisions? Are you living active decision-making processes for your family, or are you reacting? Oftentimes when we're living in a reactionary approach, even if something isn't fitting or working for our family, we don't necessarily step out of it. We just say, okay, how can we make this situation work? So we're in a situation that's typically a societal norm, and we aren't necessarily prepared for this situation. So we have to react and respond in a way in that moment we weren't prepared for it. But even when you're not prepared for something, are you reacting in a way where you're stepping back and saying, hey, maybe this whole paradigm of whatever this situation I'm in doesn't work for us. Maybe I need to step out of this box for a second and see, are there other options? But what you do in a reactionary approach is often more so, okay, this whole situation is unfortunate. It's not what I want. How can I fit into it better? Like, you're not necessarily stepping out of it. So just keeping that in mind in terms of that difference between reactionary is going to be more you're making small changes, but you're still in this box. And active decision making can sometimes involve actually stepping out of societal norms and doing something completely different for you and your family. Again, to see, is your child thriving in the current scenario or situation you may apply this to, or are they just surviving? Are they thriving or surviving? And when I talk about that light in your child's eyes that we want to see just grow brighter and brighter as they explore the world and become who they're meant to be, or are they just surviving and that light is getting dimmer because they're just, being molded into this society? So I have a lot of notes, so apologize for looking down. I just want to make sure I say everything. So are you going with the flow? Are you being dictated? So going with the flow, I'm thinking more of like, okay, so I'm flowing with this situation with my child or my baby or my pregnancy, and it's not going how I want. Let me step back. Do I need to change providers? Do I need to learn more information? Do I need to see if there's other options? Do I need to really just step back and get a tribe and community support on making this, or do I have to make it all myself? So really, I'm going to break it down with these decision-making processes, and being an advocate for your child really can be broken down into 3 elements you need to be well-informed and be a good advocate for your child. This involves confidence. So confidence isn't just something you're born with. Confidence comes from experience. Confidence comes from failure. Confidence comes from failing and then trying again. Confidence comes from having a community and support. Confidence comes from having the information. So that goes with another one. Access to information is another key element. So are you just receiving this information mainstream and not questioning it? Or are you seeking out other information, whether this involves your pregnancy options, your birthing options, decisions on your healthcare for your family, school systems, and how you want your children to develop their worldview and their self-confidence and their social interactions? Who do you want them to be surrounded by? All of these things, accurate information. And do you have proper discernment in terms of how to discern what is good information? And this is a whole huge topic right now in the world because there's censorship going on of information. There's an abundance of information, and it can be tricky to know what is true, what is false, what is a marketing ploy, like what is just somebody's opinion, what is, twisted information that, is just somebody's misinformation, basically. So having accurate information, finding and vetting that information, and doing your due diligence with these choices, you guys, because like I said in the beginning, parenting involves so many little choices that add up. So you might think a choice is benign, that, I'm just going to go with whatever feels easiest right now. There's like a lot going on. I'm just going to choose this. But these choices add up over time, and they develop your child into who they're going to become. It becomes their story, their life, and to really step back and take these things seriously, because if you're just going with the flow of the culture and the mainstream, you may look back on your journey and say, I wish I would have known. Like, I wish I would have known better. I wish I did things differently. And now is that active decision-making process. You have that choice right now as a parent to actively decide these choices for your child. And you do not need to listen to anybody else. There's experts in every field. And they're extremely valuable, right? Like, you want to seek out expert advice when you need it, but you are the expert on your child. You are the expert on your family. So really advocating and doing the research, like that whole thought process of like, you would do anything for your child, like research, learn, find if there's more options around all of the decisions that are going to come up, because every choice does matter. All right. So in terms of those things, so we want confidence, we want to know our options, and we want to have access to accurate information. These are all huge elements of being informed and being an advocate for your child. And so I want to jump into pregnancy and birth first. We're going to do pregnancy, birth, and then healthcare choices in general for your family, and then education. So all of these topics are very big and broad, and I could do a webinar on every single one of them. But so I'm just going to kind of breeze through them. But again, if any of these are places that you're in right now that you are looking for guidance or community or support, please reach out. I'm very plugged into the mom and dad world through our practice, and I know people who make whole array of decisions. We take care of a very diverse group of people in our practice, and I love connecting moms and dads and building community and support. Okay, so at the most basic level with pregnancy and birth, informed choice is when a provider is going to tell you, like, okay, so this is a potential situation during your pregnancy or birth. These are the potential risks or benefits, and what's your choice? So that at the very basic level, providers should be giving you information, informed choice on every single, procedure, option, whether that's during pregnancy with ultrasounds or any interventions. And especially with birth. And I'm not a doula. I love doulas. I am all about supporting doulas. So this is their expertise. So I'm always going to advocate for the experts to jump in when you're in this decision-making process. So doulas are the experts at helping you get informed choice through your pregnancy, birth, and postpartum experience. So I highly recommend getting a good doula for your birth. They're going to help you know before birth and also during birth what these choices may be, whether you're having a home birth and you may need to transfer to the hospital for something. They're gonna prepare you for that. If you're having a hospital birth, whether this involves Pitocin, inductions of any sort, breaking your water, epidurals, and the cascade of effects from an epidural can sometimes lead to stalled labor, and then more Pitocin, and then cesarean sections. And all of these things are sometimes necessary. I'm not saying any of them are bad, but you want to know what these choices are before before you're in active labor and you're signing these papers. So a lot of people don't know what these choices are until they're in them. So research. Evidencebasedbirth.org is a great website to learn more about all the different choices that may come up during birth, and what your options truly are, and the evidence-based research to back up these choices. So it's a great place to start, but best is to have a doula during your pregnancy and birthing experience. And then other questions when you're going through any of these decision-making processes, and I guess this could apply elsewhere besides just pregnancy and birth, but you're like, okay, what is known right now? Like, what is known? Why am I faced with this choice right now? What is the nature and process of this intervention or procedure or recommendation? Why? What are the potential benefits? What are the potential risks? The risks aren't always emphasized, and you want to know what those are because they're extremely important. And risk can just mean, what else could this lead to? What if? So again, the why, the what ifs, like, what if this happens, then what? And really continue these conversations versus just being told. Like, a lot of times in pregnancy and birth, it's more so just like informed compliance. Like, they just tell you the information and expect for you to comply. And they're not they don't have ill intentions necessarily, but they're a part of this paradigm of birth that's not necessarily supporting the physiological process, the normal, natural, biological, physiological process of pregnancy and birth. And it takes away a mother's power, and it can totally just shift, and you can look back on your birth with trauma and feelings of sadness, thinking like, I wish I knew better before I was in this situation. And so being informed in pregnancy is huge before you give birth. And then what else? So really always knowing what are the other alternatives. And this can just mean, what other providers can I see? If you, every time you go to your provider, you feel unsupported and you leave feeling like you're in tears and gonna cry, or that you just feel confused, maybe it's time to switch to providers. There are other options. And this can mean finding, a nurse midwife to birth with at the hospital. This could mean maybe you're considering a home birth. So there's always options, you guys. So that's really big. So again, pregnancy birth is literally a whole other topic, and I do have other webinars on this, and I could do one just on informed choice there. But if you have any questions or comments about that, feel free to drop them in the chat. I'm going to move on to healthcare choices for your family. So this is another one where societal norms will kind of guide you to, when your baby's born, you go to the pediatrician, you go to these well visits, you just kind of follow along with what you've been told to do. And I'm not saying don't do those things. I'm just saying that you may want to really research every single thing that they want to do, every single pharmaceutical, every single test, and even take what you hear with a grain of salt and get second opinions, because doctors say the darndest things. Like, I'm just going to straight up say it. The things I hear in practice when parents bring their children in and they say, my pediatrician said ... I'm often like jaw on the floor. And I am a well-educated healthcare provider as well. And I don't know everything, but the things that we hear are very interesting, to say the least. So you really, like I said, there's experts in every field, but you are the expert on your family. And you're going to be faced with these really, really big choices when it comes to your baby and your child as they grow and develop. And if you're told that you have to do something, but it doesn't feel right to your gut, get other opinions, do other research. Are there other options? Are other families choosing differently? What can I do to best support my child, to keep that light in their eyes? Is this going to dim them, or is it going to awaken them and help them grow and thrive? Because we don't want to just survive and live in fear about certain things happening and doing certain preventative measures to prevent certain things. We want to help our children thrive the way they were born to. So healthcare choices for your family is huge. And this, the big ones to say right off the bat you're going to be faced with are vaccination choices, circumcision choices for your baby boy. Those are two really big ones that are extremely controversial, and I'm not going to go into detail about those tonight, maybe in the future, but those are big ones that right off the bat you're going to have to choose. Breastfeeding, finding support with breastfeeding, because sometimes, it's really challenging. Breastfeeding is often one of those choices we make when we have a baby that we're like, oh, of course I'm going to breastfeed. And then you start and you realize that you have a lot of challenges to overcome. And you may have a tongue-tied baby. You may get different opinions about that. Some people will say, oh, one doctor said my baby had a tongue tie, the other didn't. Do I get the surgical intervention? Do I not? And you're in these situations and you're sleep deprived and you're exhausted. So learning the options and the potential things that could show up while you're pregnant is huge. And again, it's like drinking from a water hose when you're pregnant. You're learning so much, especially as a first-time mom. You're not going to know everything, but you do your best to know as much as you can, because again, you'll do anything for your children. So learn. So those are some biggies in terms of healthcare choices, but every child's health journey is a little bit unique and different. Choosing alternative care for them is growing in our community as well as across the country and the world. It's so cool to see, like, pediatric chiropractic care is becoming more mainstream, which just makes my heart so happy, because that's my passion in life, is to take care of kids and babies and pregnant moms and see their nervous systems and their brains develop optimally. So if you have any questions about that, that's my expertise. But there's also so much information out there now about, first foods for babies and what the proper nutrient support is for children as they're growing. So people are learning more and ways to support their children, and they're stepping out of the box of what mainstream medical, Western medical, corporate America is telling them to do. Okay, so otherwise, the next big topic is education. And again, another whole topic I could do a webinar on. But education is so big and it is so important, right? Like, we think like our child's education is what's going to allow them to reach their goals in life. And we want them to have a solid foundation. But we can't just focus on the academics, because what's happening in our world is we're focusing so left brain, so academic, that these children are often sacrificing their self-confidence, their self-esteem, their self-worth, their social health, right? They're placed in these schooling environments where they're not necessarily thriving. But again, back to the beginning of this webinar, we talked about that active decision-making process versus that reactionary approach, and that light in your child's eyes. So if you say, I'm just going to do an example, say your child is ready for school, and you put them through the public school system, and like, for instance, in Central Oregon, we have exceptional schooling systems, like really, really good public school systems. We also have amazing private schools. But whether or not you're putting them in these schooling environments and you say, this is really close to my home, the teachers are great, has like really high level of education and learning academically here, but your child's there and they're not thriving, they're not happy, that light is getting dimmer, they maybe aren't excelling academically either. Like, what are you noticing in your child? Or are you just justifying it in terms of like, oh, this is just part of growing up and they just need to get over it? Or are you looking at, okay, so my child's in this situation and maybe they're not thriving, but instead of taking them out of the situation, I'm just going to figure out how can we make this situation better? And that's where that active decision-making process comes in, because maybe that is all you need to do. Maybe they need an IEP. Maybe they need extra support. Maybe their particular teacher isn't vibing with them or understanding them. Maybe there's certain bullies or certain situations happening socially that aren't supporting them. But what is their self-worth becoming? Because when they are feeling like they're falling behind, or that they're struggling to really connect with their peers, all of that has more of an impact on their future and who they become than their grades in math class. And whatever else, they're learning about, facts they're memorizing and things like that. That self-worth, self-confidence is the biggest piece. So when it comes to education for me as a mom and, seeing other families kind of navigate these waters, I feel like that is the biggest indicator, is if it's a good fit. Are they thriving? Are they happy? Do they love going to school? Because there are other options. And oftentimes in our culture, we think, oh, well, you just go to public school. It's just what you do, and oftentimes many people can't afford private schools, but then private schools come with their own drama and other things that I've learned and heard in terms of, finances and, being in a small knit environment. Like, I take care of a amazing young man who's in high school up at a really, really like the nicest private school in Bend. And he told me, he's like, look, like the people I'm in school with, like I would never choose to hang out with them. Like, I hang out with kids from public school because I don't connect with these other people. And it's such a small environment. He's like, I feel like I'm forced to hang out with them, and I don't enjoy hanging out with them. So there's these pros and cons. Like, you think, oh, like this nourishing school that's like seemingly like on paper from an adult perspective, perfect. But then the child is like, well, I'm not thriving here. I don't love it. So really, when they're older, like in high school, you can follow their lead more. But when they're younger, to me, look at the light in their eyes. Look at their joy. Look at that spark. Like, picture them when they were 2, 3 years old, running around the house naked, just having a blast, being themselves, thriving, being drawn to certain things that they love artistically and energetically. And are they still that person? Do they still have that light and spark and zest and excitement for life? And if not, maybe where they're going to school and the people they're surrounded with aren't nourishing them and supporting them in that way. Homeschooling has become a huge thing, especially with COVID, in the whole masking, all that stuff. Parents are like, no way. Hi, Lindsay. So glad you're listening and getting something valuable out of this. I'm so happy to hear it. Thank you for saying so. And with homeschooling, it's become like some, people were forced to homeschool, right, because of COVID. And now it's people are like, wow, like I am able to meet my child's needs way more than they were in school. I have this one particular little boy I take care of who I just love. Like, I could cry thinking about him because he's just the sweetest little guy. And he was, in an IEP in school, and the mom was really super happy with the school program and what everything was going on, but he was still delayed. He was still behind. He was still dealing with some challenges socially and academically. And then COVID hit, and she, was forced to homeschool, and she was very happy she had that flexibility in her job to be able to do so. And now she's continuing to homeschool because she found that she knows her child better than anybody, and she can meet his needs right now more than anybody. And he is just excelling and thriving like way beyond where he was in public school. And the thing with school, though, is, you think education wise, like once they're in a situation, they have to stay in that situation. And that's not true. Like, I know so many kids who have switched. Like, okay, they needed to homeschool for these 2 years to build this solid foundation or kind of recover from something. And then they do this solid, nourishing homeschooling for a couple years. And then they go to public school, or then they go to private school, or they go back and forth. And people worry, like, oh, that's going to create so much instability and socially, and making all these changes and adapting to all that. But really, kids are resilient in a lot of ways. I don't love that saying for other things, but in terms of if they're loved and nourished and supported, and if making those changes along the journey actually best meets their needs, then it's okay. If you're making those changes just because, situations where, it's like a military family, or, and they just have to be moving all the time, like sometimes that can be stressful. But if you're making a choice because it's what's best for your child, then they're going to be fine. They're going to excel. They're going to adapt. So, with all these things, with school, again, I could go on. And as a mom, I'm not even there yet. My daughter's only 2, but I'm like thinking ahead so far about like, what is this going to look like? And it's a little intimidating, and I'm right there with you. And every day is a new day and learning experience for everybody in a family. So really, I hope you guys got a lot out of those topics in terms of pregnancy, birth, education, and healthcare choices, and being an advocate for your family. I would love to continue this discussion with any of you. I am hoping to restart my holistic parenting group at Pure Light soon. It used to be going once a month, and I would love to get that going again. At those meetings, we talk about all this stuff and more. In a group discussion community, that tribe building is so essential because we really can't be making these decisions alone. And often, things like Facebook and, our direct friends and family are great resources. But if we can build this tribe and support each other through these journeys to best meet our children's needs, so that our children grow up with that light in their eyes to express who they were meant to be, that God-given potential to be and shine and contribute to humanity and this world. So I am, just about 30 minutes in. So I just want to respect everybody's time. I hope you guys all have a great night, and stay tuned. We have lots of webinars coming up. Dr. Liz, our new chiropractor at Pure Light, who is amazing. If you haven't been adjusted by her yet, you are in for a treat. She's doing an incredible webinar on Thursday evening this week on the polyvagal theory, which is all about attachment, emotions, and development for our kiddos. It's going to be incredible, packed full of information. It's actually 2 parts because it's so much information. So definitely get onto that webinar. It's going to be incredible. And she has so much to share. So I hope you guys all have an incredible evening, and we'll see you next time. Bye.